competing at a combined weight of 405 pounds. They are the reigning, defending, undisputed Racing Dudes Triple Crown champions of the world, the Magic Mike Show.
What's up, everybody? I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is the Magic Mike Show, episode 447. Mr. Somich.
Early huzzah!
Early huzzah indeed. Yeah, we little programming notes switching up the last second. Got a sick kid taken care of, and he went down for his nap super early. So we're like, got to strike while the iron's hot. But speaking of things that are hot, holy cow, Mike, the Kentucky Derby Trail, 4 preps over the weekend, 4 for the Oaks. I'll say it didn't disappoint in the sense that we finally got a lot of shit to talk about, buddy.
Yeah, we do. I mean, it was a fun prep weekend as well. We got to see a superstar run. We've got a ton of question marks out at Santa Anita. We had the shit show that was the Aqueduct prep, and a stable him up wins a Derby prep at Turfway. So what more could you ask for from a weekend? Oh, and Smoking Jay got the job done. Yeah, baby, let's go.
There it is. Let's say we had 2 stable him up horses that did well for us if you were paying attention over the weekend. So we're going to talk about all that. It's a big show. If you're watching us live, thanks for joining us. Give us your opinions on what went down, because you're probably not going to have our own. There's a lot of crazy shit that went down. Let's get into it, buddy. Riders up. All right, Mike, the first race we get to talk about, the one we cared about the most going into it, did not disappoint. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Champion Forte finally makes his 3-year-old debut. He breaks from the 4-post here. A clean break, and it seemed like he was pretty much going to be a winner. He looked great every step of the way. What did you think about the champ?
Yeah, I thought he looked awesome, especially compared to the performance that we've seen leading up to this. It was all about, hey, does Forte return? Does he look good returning? He looked awesome in his last couple workouts. I thought he ran a really nice, clean race here. He's a little more forwardly placed when we've seen him in the past, which I thought was a good sign heading into his 3-year-old campaign here. Very important for the Derby that you have some early tactical speed. So nice to see him get out of the gate well. And then when asked to go, he went and got the job done.
I like that he sat a little bit closer to this pace. He was able to settle. They weren't going super fast. And so the fact that he was within a few lengths, taking kickback, I mean, you can see he's directly behind our boy Rocket Can there, getting a bunch of kickback. Still doesn't bother him. You remember the photos after he won the Juvenile, just was caked in mud, so doesn't mind it. You were right. He had just a very professional effort here. The horses that were around him, Rocket Can had slower buyers coming into this, but he had won a prep over this exact track and set up here, so he was dangerous. You had Mage, who I actually thought, considering he had to change tactics here, I thought Mage actually ran decently. Remember, this is just his second career start, first time routing, first time without Lasix. A horse that we thought maybe could go gate to wire, didn't break on top, and then, he fought there with it. No match for Forte, obviously, but moving forward, I thought was a good effort for Mage.
I thought so too. You said it. He didn't break well. The pace wasn't very fast. He had to rush up into that pace, was wide on both turns. So I thought this is a good second effort from Mage. Definitely one that I'm interested in back here. You can see he's finishing up pretty well there down the middle of the track, even after everything that happened. I thought it was really a good race all around. I thought Rocket Cannon and Cyclone Mischief ran pretty well in this spot to finish where they did. You could tell that Forte wasn't fully cranked though here. This was the first step in a 3-step process for Pletcher. It's what he loves to do. The goal is the Derby. The goal was not the Fountain of Youth. He's going to be better in the Florida Derby. He's going to be very dangerous, especially with what we've seen so far this year. I mean, we just have not seen any horse like this. So when he comes back and looks as good as he did as a 2-year-old, it cements him atop the Derby list. Anyone who does not have Forte right now as the most likely Derby winner and Derby favorite needs to have their head checked. You can like other horses, but he has to be considered the main threat right now to win the Derby.
If you were a fan of him, if you had him first in your ranking coming into this race, there's nothing there that would dissuade you. You would feel very confident. I mean, look at just how, like, I just give him little shakes and the ears are perked up. That horse is so ready to keep going and keep improving. If you weren't a Forte fan, I don't know what what else did you need to see that would have changed your mind, unless you just, for whatever reason, just don't like Forte? He just looked so good. The pace was slow. When pace is fast, he can eat up the horses and go get them. There's no issue there. So looked great. Moving forward out of this race, your Rocket Can, Cyclone Mischief, Mage, Shadow Dragon. Anyone that you're interested in for the Florida Derby? I know Michael Myers is talking about possibly Mage getting second in the Florida Derby if you wanted to play a straight exacta when you get to that spot. What do you think?
I think, look, Mage to me is the most interesting out of this race because of the switch in tactics. We know the horse has early speed, just missed the break, got pinched back early, was wide both turns. Like I said, I think Mage is the one that you want coming out of here. Obviously, Forte was the best horse in this race. I'm not going to say Mage would have beaten him if this had gone differently. But Mage, I think, is the one who has the best chance moving forward to really improve. I think Rocket Can ran about as well as you could expect. I think that Cyclone Mischief ran about as well as you could expect. I think that Shadow Dragon ran about as well as you could expect. If we run this same race back in the Florida Derby without any new shooters, I think it's going to be these same 5 horses that you see in the same top 5. And I wouldn't be shocked if it's, Forte, Mage, Rocket Can, Cyclone Mischief, and kind of play a cold super there, even if you want to, because I think the cards were kind of shown as to where you'd rank these horses after watching this race.
Rocket Can, Tom O'Connor says Rocket Can also seemed to run pretty big. I thought so. Very clearly no match for the juvenile champion, but we haven't seen anyone since he debuted really who was a match for him. That one loss he had was kind of wonky. Michael Myers brings up a great question. We can move on. He was 1-2 in the Fountain of Youth, 1-5 in the Florida Derby for Forte, realistically.
We got to see who comes. If this is the group, 1-5. I mean, if we don't have any new shooters, then that's probably an accurate number. I would say you don't see too many 1-5 shots, especially in like 9-10 horse field, which is what I'd expect from the Florida Derby. So I'll say 2-5 right now, but I think that's a fair estimate if you don't see anyone else come in.
98 buyer for Forte for the return. Not the biggest buyer from the 3-year-old Derby preps. That actually belongs out west in California. The Grade 2 San Felipe Stakes winner, number 3, Practical Move. All the ex-Bafferts with Tim Yaktine in this race, and it's the organic, the original Tim Yaktine that gets the job done. I'm with Aaron. The more I watch this race, the more I'm impressed by this effort. What did you think about Practical Move?
I thought he was phenomenal. I really thought this was a great effort. Look, the talk around Practical Move is going to be Practical Joke, right? And we've talked about Practical Joke quite a bit on here. Probably one of my top 3 favorite sires right now. I mean, it's violence, Practical Joke, and that third spot can go back and forth depending on how everyone's doing in this at the moment. But to me, I love Practical Joke as a sire. You always make fun of me when I pick a Practical Joke horse at a mile, let alone a mile and a 16th, a mile and an 8th, a mile and a quarter. So the big question here with Practical Move is going to be the distance as we continue to go further and further. But man, he looked awesome here. He got a dream trip. He ran right through the rail. But look, Hijazi got to do it all his own way up front. He should have taken care of business here and was unable to. Go Rocket Ride, makes a move. Fort Bragg makes a move. And you can see Practical Move is still in hand at this point, not really being asked yet. As soon as that rail opens up, he spurts right through professionally, something that some 3-year-olds struggle with, and then able to just kick clear. And this race is over right here. I mean, it's just as soon as he touches the lead, no one's catching him. The gallop out is good. So it's like, well, maybe there aren't distance concerns for this horse because of what's on the bottom side. And that might be the difference here, is that the dam side has some distance. And so do I love this horse in the Derby? Man, it's tough because the problem off this effort, his price is going down now, right? So you're going to see a shorter and shorter price as the races get longer and longer. And that's where those question marks are for me. But the gallop out here is phenomenal. Look at him. He's clearly the best horse going forward, too, not just at that mile and 16th distance. So if you like what's in this race, I think that's a big question. Do you like Skinner? Do you like Hijazi? Do you like Go Rocket Ride? If you do, this was as good as Forte's performance.
All great points for me, and I don't even know where to start. I think this is just setting up for a great storyline. AEW just had a pay-per-view over the weekend, so you think about what's going to be the best storyline to make for the most attention on that pay-per-view. Santa Anita Derby. I'm just going to throw this out there, Mike. Bob Baffert watches Tim Yaktine and watches all these horses that Tim Yaktine keeps beating. Bob Baffert's going to either enter Arabian Night or Cave Rock in the Santa Anita Derby. the showdown of the best yak teen with all those other Bafferts in the barn, with Baffert keeping, I'm sorry, he doesn't have Arabian Night. So he's only got K-Rock. He puts K-Rock in there, faces Tim Yak-Teen. He's like, okay, bring it. Like, I'm ready now. Like, this is the one I didn't give you. Can you beat this one? Like, I'm really waiting for a showdown like that. He's beaten every horse that he's been asked to beat. I think 6 or 7 different Bafferts he's beaten. I did the math at one point. It's crazy how many Bafferts he's had to beat and keep beating. He had the dream trip, but he won like a horse that took advantage of it and was still a good one to do it. Like, if he was a bad horse, he just gets the job done. Before we leave, National Treasure it's supposed to be in this race. He's scratched out of it. A lot of people have him as a top pick. Hard to say for sure, but if National Treasure's in this race, what are we looking at for an outcome? Is he right there with Practical Move? Do you think Practical Move was just that good?
I think National Treasure would have been tough because they went 23-47 to the half with Hijazi having the lead. National Treasure is faster than Hijazi. We've seen that consistently. So National Treasure would have set the pace in here. I think he would have been much more difficult to pass than Hijazi was down the lane. So I think at worst, National Treasure would have run second in this race. I think that he would have had a big shot at winning the race. On the Hijazi front, just this was it. This was it. This was the perfect setup. You went 111 to 316 or to 6 furlongs. You've got to get the job done in that race if you are Hijazi, and just wasn't able to. I would say he's about even money to win one of the undercard derbies, the West Virginia Derby, the Pennsylvania Derby, something like that, because that is exactly the type of horse he might end up being. But it's over for Hijazi at the grade 1 level against these, well, I should say, in these preps against these type of horses. This was your chance, and you just didn't do it.
Man, I got a lot of shit from people, including Aaron, saying that after he broke his maiden, we talked about it in one of these review shows, and I was like, I don't know. I think he's just going to be a miler. I don't think he can get the distance. Thank you. Thank you. He can't get the damn distance. Now, I also picked the horse on top in this race in the guide, so that didn't do me a good. I thought that he would get a lead like this. He's comfortable. There's zero excuse. Like, if he's good enough, if he's good enough, I don't care if it's Yak-Teen or Baffert training. If he's good enough, he turns on the jets at the quarter pole when Mike asks him instead of fading. So, last question here, and then we'll move on to the next race. 5-2 favorite was on the debut winner, Go Rocket Ride, who was stretching out from 6 furlongs. 4-1 on Practical Move. I have a feeling that we're going to see similar odds to that in the San Diego Derby. I think Go Rocket Ride is favored again over Practical Move next out, despite getting second here. What do you think?
No, I disagree. When you watch this replay, Practical Move was the better horse. And I realize Go Rocket Ride has every right to improve off this race, but he was never even sniffing Practical Move. And yeah, he didn't break as well as you might have hoped. He was a little wide on the first turn, a little wide on the second turn. But if you as you watch this gallop out, I mean, Practical Move is kind of opening up here in the last 16th and then keeps opening up once they go past the wire without being asked. I mean, I think Practical Move was the wildly more impressive horse here. And I think that a lot of times we get captivated by the moment, and you see this horse, the romps in their debut in a maiden special weight, and you just want them to be the next superstar. And I'm willing to give him the chance, man, but I'd should not be favored in my mind over Practical Move next time out.
I guess where I'm going with that is I just see a lot of people, saying, oh, wait, hey, man, for first-time routing, first-time winners, look at this, look at that, and they can make excuses. Then I think the hype on him will continue to go with that. I don't know. Shadi brings up a good point. He keeps getting some disrespect. I don't think he's done completely being disrespected yet. We'll see what he does, but a very impressive move there. By the way, so Practical Move wasn't in Aaron's top 5 for the Kentucky Derby before this race. He is in the top 5. If you want to see exactly where he landed, go check out the video at youtube.com/racingdudes. One horse that did win a prep, Mike, is not in the top 5, kind of begrudgingly in the top 20 because he got the points. It's the winner of the Gotham Stakes, Raise Kane. This race, actually, the next 2 Derby preps we're going to talk about, complete horseshit mess races. Like, everything just falls apart all over the place. Trip trouble, horse jockeys falling off the horse. What do you make of the Gotham?
Yeah, I mean, this is the difference between preps where you're excited about those horses and they have a great future and great betting preps. I mean, this was a wonderful race to bet. If you had any opinion, Iron Clover going off as a favorite. As the owners of Iron Clover in the Fantasy League, we would have told you it was absolutely wild. Like, I didn't think that Iron Clover was going to be the favorite in this spot. No! Especially with all of the speed sign down when we're stretching out off 2 sprint races. Yeah, look, we all had Raise Cane. I mean, I think I had Raise Cane in third. I know Aaron or Jared had him in second. Like, this is a horse that was 30-1 on the morning line. That was the only horse that was semi-decent closing in a race which featured a massive amount of pace. So it's a great betting race in that sense. And you get Raise Cane, I think, across the wire, like 23-1, something like that here. But this is this reminds me of the Pate Mile, where you have a bunch of horses who have a ton of speed, and it's kind of a shit show of whether or not any of them are going to be able to hold on late. And you've got that one closer who's just kind of makes up a ton of ground. And you can see Raise Cane now just starting to kick it in gear and just goes right on by everybody.
There was a funny story about his trainer, Ben Colebrook, who also saddled a horse, Scooby Quando, at Turfway Park in the race we're going to talk about in a minute. He stayed at Aqueduct long enough to saddle the horse. He was under the tunnel watching the race. He had the Uber driver pull over when he could see him go by on the backstretch. And then from there on, he watched the rest of the race on his phone on the way to the airport, because he had to get to Turfway to saddle his next horse. Good effort. You know, he took advantage of this situation. I don't know, that this is such a mess. I mean, you know, you see the jockeyless horse, how great is Nate? Ran pretty great. Slip Mahoney came up for second. Iron Clover, I really thought held on for third. Apparently got fourth there, got caught right at the wire. General, what was it? Who's General the horse Banker, that always finishes third, and Aaron screwed up and didn't do it?
Every time General Banker runs third. It's the third straight New York race like this. He's run third in. No matter what the pace is up front, he always just ends up running third. You can pencil him in there. Did it again here at a monster number. I think it was like 18-1, something like that. And with the winner up top and that horse in third, I know Aaron was quite upset with himself, because we literally joked on the last live stream with Hit Show, or with Arctic Arrogance and Lugan Knight, how you could just pencil in General Banker for third in that race, and he ran third there. And here you can see him kind of coming up on the outside there, and ends up just getting past Iron Clover there for third here too.
One thing that we kind of look at when the pace falls apart here, our boy Iron Clover, sure, should have been the 3-1 favorite here, but he was part of that big pace collapse, except he still held on for, he missed third by a nose. He wasn't anywhere close to the winner, but he wasn't that far behind Slip Mahoney either. If he doesn't get caught in such a crazy fast pace duel over a very muddy Aqueduct track, as you can see there, what do you think about Iron Clover moving forward? Any chance for this horse, or are these all just sprinters, or Raise Cane's a deep closer?
I mean, I think Iron Clover was awesome compared to what you saw the rest of the speed, right? I mean, everyone else who was anywhere up near up front just completely faded off of it and backed out of this spot, whereas Iron Clover fought on, just missed third place. Actually, I got pretty drastically out Bob for it. Like, Slip Mahoney runs a completely different style, comes from way off the pace after missing the break, and that's why you see him running up in second. Raise Cane coming from off the pace gets home here. Iron Clover was the one horse that held out. I don't think that he is going to be devastating at a mile and a 16th or around 2 turns, things like that. I do think Iron Clover could be a very good sprinter out of this class, though. I think it's like him at 7 furlongs seems awfully dangerous considering what he was able to do here.
Let's set him to the Pat Day Mile. At least get some points out of him for fantasy purposes here. All right, let's go talk about Turfway Park, the John Montaglia Memorial Stakes, where a race that produced last year's Kentucky Derby winner and last year's Kentucky Derby winning jockey rode Congruent to win. If you want to know who Congruent is, you're watching the stream. He's one of the 2 gray horses. He's the 12 there on the outside with the neon green. This race was crazy because Congruent's all the way in the back, and I think there were 6 lead changes from the quarter pole to the 8th pole. And then Congruent just swept by everybody and took it. What did you think of this race?
Interesting that we see a turf horse win this race. Obviously, we had Somobomb last year, who won some of these Turfway preps, who was a turf horse as well. Also interesting, that turf horse that has been struggling against the middling tier of 3-year-old turf horses is able to get the job done on the Triple Crown Trail. So it kind of makes you wonder that the turf 3-year-olds we have versus the dirt 3-year-olds we have, and how much better those turf 3-year-olds may be. Look, this was a good race from Congruent. Great job getting the win. Nice to get a big price. If you continue to follow this horse after the stable him up, it definitely paid off here, getting home at a good number. No chance the Derby, right? Keep him here at Turfway, have him running in these preps, get him back in the Jeff Ruby Stakes, those kind of things, right? Like, just go for the points here, but I don't think you actually want him in the Derby gate.
Well, if you're the connections, you might, but no, as a better or anything like that, not someone that I'm looking forward to using. Well, look at this. What I mean, just so many different ways. By the way, the 3-horse Gilmore was your favorite at 2-1. That's another ex-Baffert. He did not run a lick after getting second in the El Camino Real Derby at Golden Gate on their synthetic. All these horses, I thought we were going to get the lead, and then here comes Congruent flying right by. A couple horses like Scooby Quando stretching out for the first time I thought were interesting, but I don't know. I think there's one other horse that might come out of the Turfway Park series, and he wasn't in this race, so we'll even see if he shows up. But overall, there you go, congruent. He gets 20 points for the Kentucky Derby. But you bring up an interesting point, Mike. The turf horses in the 3-year-old class, at least at this point in March, they might be, from a whole, for getting the top couple, they might be largely better than the dirt 3-year-olds that we have right now.
Yeah, especially with the dirt 3-year-olds that we've seen come back, right? We still don't have Loggins, we don't have Cave Rock, like we don't have extra Neho yet. I mean, the top end of that class is pretty thin based on what we thought it would be like from last year. Whereas the turf class, keep seeing these kind of stars pop out, right? Like Major Dude, who beat Congruent the last couple times out. So you've got some really nice horses on the turf side that are continuing to improve and show themselves out. On the dirt side, you kind of have this hodgepodge of what you're seeing in that second tier of horses, right? So I thought the turf 3-year-old has been wonderful, and this kind of flatters that group down at Gulfstream Park, because Congruent could not sniff a top 3 finish in the last 2 races over that turf course against, good 3-year-old turf horses. And here again, the dirt horses with a couple that are nice here, like, Gilmore, not a slouch coming into this race, gets absolutely trounced by Congruent.
Yeah, Michael Myers. Yeah, flatters Major Dude. You bet it does. Speaking of Major Dude, let's go back to his home track, Florida, Gulfstream Park. We'll switch gears now and talk about the Kentucky Oaks. Actually, no, I'm sorry, Mike. I completely skipped right over Kentucky Derby before we get into it. Who do you have right now as like your top pick? Is it Forte? Does he like establish himself as your top pick?
Yeah, you can't not pick Forte at this point. I'd love to not pick Forte, but look, he was one of the best horses we saw at 2. He is the 2-year-old champion. The concerns around the first workout back, it wasn't great. It's the last 2 have been phenomenal. Everything was all systems go in this race. I don't see how you could not have Forte on top of a Derby board right now, even though it is kind of chalky and not fun. Now, does that mean Forte is going to be my Derby pick? No. But right now, without having the gates, without anything else, without knowing who's in the gate, I don't see how you can't say he's not the most talented 3-year-old.
Yeah. Mike's going a little crazy there. I agree with you. I was waiting to see until he came back what he could do. Fully on board with him right now. It'll be interesting. We've got Tapit Trice coming up this weekend in the Tampa Bay Derby. He'll be a very short price. We'll see what he does. He's kind of on that bubble of we think he could be part of the top level here, but we need to see him do it. And so many times we've seen horses not make that step like we thought they would. So I'll be curious to watch what happens with Tapit Trice. The practical move, I think I probably have him 4th. I still have Arabian Night up there. But we have to see where he's going to return, how he's going to do it. He did miss a work slightly because of the rain. So did Cave Rock. They both came back, had really nice sharp works once the track was dried up. So that's where we stand. Where do you have Arabian Night? We haven't talked about him in a while because he hasn't raced in over a month.
I mean, he would probably be somewhere around the 5th point. I'm not a huge Arabian Night fan just because of the paddling thing, right? So because of that, I think there are going to be some more issues from when we go longer for Arabian Night than we've seen with other horses. And like, we talked about how bad these Yak-Teen horses looked all weekend. I mean, like, this is 1 week under the care, and when they're even in the same stalls as they were, what's going to happen when we get fully into that training process? Now, Baffert is around this year versus not around at all last year, which some people think means that he's essentially that this is a paper trainer versus last year there was some actual training going on by Yak-Teen. But just the early returns here are not great for these horses leaving the Baffert barn. And last year's returns were awful when they left the barn. And all of a sudden, when they came back to him, they were good again. So it's tough for me to really get behind any Baffert, now Yak-Teen, Asmussen, whoever horse, because of what we've seen from these horses coming in running in these preps now.
By the way, a 90 buyer for Ray's Kane. I'm glad Arctic Arrogance scratched out of that with an illness because I don't think that race was going to do any favors for him. And then the Battaglia, I just lost it. Where is a 91 buyer for Congruent? So nothing that pops out. Again, 98 for Forte, 100 for Practical Move. That's the highest. All right, now we can go back Kentucky Oaks. First, Darth Vader upsetting our girl Red Carpet Ready. The Florida bred did it this time. I had to eat shit for it. I said no to Florida breds again. It didn't work out this time. What happened in the Devona Dale, Mike?
Darth Vader ran a huge race. I mean, I think you kind of have to give the 9 credit here for just running a monster race, which is odd at 45-1, as you see there on the board. But, we were on the live stream for this one, and she never looked like she was really being stressed out. I mean, this is just a phenomenal effort here. And you see Red Carpet Ready gets the lead at even money here. Red Carpet Ready was wildly impressive in the prep prior to this at Gulfstream Park. And you've got the 5 there, Undervalued Asset, who ran second to her. Leave No Trace, who ran second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, is in this spot. And like all of those horses are the ones right around Darth Vader. And Darth Vader is still completely in hand here. Comes up to the 3. You're kind of like, okay, red carpet ready is just going to open up here. Darth Vader's going to fade away. Darth Vader never faded away. This was just a really good effort. Now, what do you do with that effort is a completely different question, because you're not getting 45-1 next time out. So you have to decide, was this a fluke? Is this who the horse is? Are you okay with 8-1, 7-1, 5-1 next time out? What about if we're not running a mile and we're going 2 turns? Does that change your plans with Darth Vader? So a lot of question marks out of here, but just from a race perspective, look, she was the best horse in this race, period. End of sentence.
One of 2 Gervin horses to get big stakes wins over the weekend as well. Gervin's still lighting it up down in Florida. I mean, this is a filly who was 6th at Tampa Bay Downs in her last race in a sprint. Comes back here and wins. She'd won at Gulfstream before a couple of times, so she was proven the track. I don't think we saw red carpet ready completely bombing like that, especially because she was just stretching out further going on 1 turn. It wasn't, routing for the first time here. We'll save the talk about your top pick for later, but red carpet ready, do you even consider her a legitimate Oaks horse moving forward? Do you want to at least see her try 2 turns before you completely poo-poo her?
Yeah, I think we need to have her try 2 turns. And I think Nick makes a good point here. I mean, it's the second quarter mile that cooked her up, right? I mean, she went 23:45. I mean, she wasn't able to go 23:46, 23:47, something like that. Now you say that, but guess what? Darth Vader went 23-2, 45-1, right? Like she was right there on that pace as well. So it's a little less of an excuse in that standpoint, but you can see the flow of the race outside of the 9 horse. I mean, it was the closers came on flying. The 6 horse gets up at a big number for Chad Brown in the 2nd spot.
Yeah.
The 2 horse rounds out the try coming from way off the pace. Like, look, it's just one of those spots where the race flow was heavily favoring the horses coming from behind, except for, Darth Vader, who just runs huge.
Yeah, I forgot about that. But the Chad Brown horse, Guns and Graces, the other Chad Brown just came flying up to get second like that. Like, of course she did. Why not? Yeah. Some people saying she might be a sprinter. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Dr. Miranda, our Oaks expert, saying Chuck all Devonadale winners. Remember whole Bodemeister 2 years ago? I had forgotten about that, but thank you for reminding us about that one.
Well, I believe Miranda picked whole Bodemeister. So this is like a humble brag in a way there. She's not really calling out that she picked that horse, but I'm pretty sure she picked that horse.
She definitely picked Practical Move in the guide. She was about the only one that did that, so hats off to her for that. Anyways, Busher Stakes at Aqueduct for the Kentucky Oaks, over the mud and a mile. Only 6 horses in here. Is it playing? There it goes. Now they're playing. All right. Only 6 horses in here. She Da Booty, and I love that name because that is how it is. She Da Booty gets the win here. I thought a pretty impressive effort overall. What did you make of the Busher?
I mean, it was a fun race, right? I didn't love this. I thought the 5 ran well here, right? And she's able to get up and get the win, stalk from the outside. But there wasn't any real world beaters coming into this. I wasn't wildly high in asset purchase in here. It was your 4 to 5 favorite. So it's one of those questions. Okay, what did she really beat? Aqueduct playing a little funky right now because of the as you can see, it was a wildly muddy day there as well. Closers were kind of being favored anyway, so horses were coming from a little bit off the pace. That's where she came from as well. It's a fine race. She beat what was in front of her, but I don't really want anyone here out in the Oaks.
Yeah, as far as the Oaks goes, I don't think there's anything here. You might see Sheeta Booty. I think she could progress nicely and end up at like the Acorn. That's a 1-turn race at Belmont coming this spring. Really nothing too exciting out of this. I know Zia Arati was getting some people's attention. Asset Purchase was supposed to be a Chad Brown horse that was supposed to fire and just didn't. So ends up falling off here to get pretty houndily beat in the stretch.
Which is
probably all distance crazy. Limited.
This horse should be gone. 4 to 5 going 112 for 6 furlongs and open up by 3.5 lengths, and she doesn't win the race. I mean, if you put a number on her right here, she'd be 1 to 9, and like she just kind of stops here in the last furlong.
By the way, wouldn't be trying to stretch for time here, just so we can at least watch this race finish. Sheeta Booty by Practical Joke. So that's 2 wins, 2 stakes wins for Practical Joke and over the weekend. So
both at a mile or longer. Magic, how do you feel about that?
This was a 1-turn mile. That's fine. None of us are too excited about her moving forward. The Cincinnati Trophy Stakes at Turfway Park. Botanical, this might have been the actual best filly that ran all weekend in these races. Botanical, the 3-horse for Brad Cox, is now 3 for 3. It's at Turfway Park, but she looks fantastic doing it. Do we ever see her come back to the dirt before the Oaks, though?
Before the Oaks, probably not. But she's one where, like, I could at least get excited about Botanical moving forward, right? You said, like, look, Brad Cox does a wonderful job with these fillies, specifically the 3-year-old fillies. I could see her ending up being a player when we talk about the Oaks, or at least like someone that we're interested underneath. The key is going to be to switch to the dirt. Can she handle the switch to the dirt after she's run so well on synthetic a couple times? There's a reason she's running on synthetic. It's not like Brad Cox doesn't run out his good fillies on dirt. So there's a reason she's here and not somewhere else. But this race was impressive. Look, you have the runoff leader here, so 23 and change, or 22 and change, 45 and change. You knew that horse wasn't holding on. It was just a question of who's going to go get her. And Botanical did a great job of going and getting her and kind of just putting this field away.
Botanical debuted on the turf, obviously, because it was a Kentucky Downs. Didn't run well in that, but did run a very strong second in her second start at Keeneland. Again, that was on the turf, though, so she's only been on turf or synthetic. I respect what the connections are doing. Brad Cox, the owner, Ellen J. Fox, was there's a lot of money to be made running over at Turfway Park in these preps. You can get her into the Kentucky Oaks, and hell, you see what happens there. She's never touched dirt on the race day, so that is a big question mark for her. But, Pop's a 91 buyer. This race was extremely fast compared to anything we saw at Aqueduct, and she's by Mandagliadoro, so you would think it's all set up for her to do well.
Yeah, also still green, too. I mean, you can watch her down the lane there. Like when she tries to shift over leads, he really has to tug the reins to get her to flip the lead over, and you see her duck in a little bit there. So you can see it right here. He's going to go wide, and you can see her head cocked outside. You see him kind of pull the hands across there, and that's when she switches leads over and kind of bursts, but she flips back and forth a couple times down the lane and just kind of moving around. So there's still some more forward energy she could have instead of side-to-side energy. So still figuring it out a little in her head as well, which means that generally there's room to improve there. So I think it's a good effort. We'll see what she's able to do. The big question is going to be, can she handle the dirt? Because, like I said, there's a reason she's been only on the turf and synthetic so far.
I do like her as well. We got one more Oaks race to talk about real quick, and this comes from Sunday at San Diego Park. Race 3, Feza continues to be unbeaten for Bob Baffert. Did not change trainers, and so no Kentucky Oaks points for her. No Kentucky Oaks future for her, it seems to be. Only an 81 buyer, and I'm starting to think these California fillies, Mike, on dirt, they might not be that good. Justique has had a bunch of hype, but this time she finally breaks cleanly for the first time in her career. Doesn't make a difference. She's still 4th. And Tell Me No Lies was a multiple graded stakes winner last year, too. Went to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, didn't do much. She ran a decent second, but I don't know. What do you make of this field?
I mean, if there was only a podcast that's been saying for years that the California 3-year-old fillies aren't as good, I would listen to that personally if we had a podcast out there just consistently said that. Yeah, these aren't that good. The fillies in California are just not as good. And because the males have generally been so good, I think they get overhyped and overrated. You want the East Coast fillies. We have for years. It's no different this year. Justique's a fun horse. You love that she's got this closing kick, comes from off the pace. But like, let's be real. She's not going to actually compete in the Oaks. The California group rarely does compete in the Oaks the last few years. So these are all horses that you just kind of throw out when you get into the Oaks. I think that's one of the reasons why you don't see the fillies on the Baffert size transferred over, because he knows they're not good enough to win the Oaks. That they're better horses out there on the East Coast.
The one horse, Pride of the Nile. This is the 3rd straight race in a graded stakes that she lost to Feza, and this time she wasn't anywhere close to it. So, but because of that, I got a nice price on And Tell Me No Lies. It was a nice little exacta here. I had boxed them up, hoping that maybe Feza wasn't going to be ready, or that maybe the Miller juice would be extra strong and Tell Me No Lies. But I mean, there's no Oaks, dreams really realistically out of this. We've already seen And Tell Me No Lies face the East Coast fillies once, and it didn't go well for her then. So with that in mind, who the hell is your pick for the Oaks? Is it Hoosier Filly? Pretty Mischievous? Where are you going?
I'm still with Hoosier Filly. I'm hoping that because of the last race, we get a better price. We've talked about that trip for her. I think it was worse than a lot of people have been saying. And so I'll take Hoosier Filly right now as the most talented 3-year-old filly in the country.
Nick's joining the magic train here. Bandita for Todd Pletcher. 1 start, 1 win. Let's go. That's kind of where the bar is set right now. She debuted. She won it. She hasn't lost. So, okay, there's the pick. Hoosier Filly, I think, yeah, we'll give her another shot there. Practical I'm sorry, Pretty Mischievous, looking pretty good as well. By the way, Feza, the other Gervin that won a stakes race. So Gervin and Practical Joke in 2023, each getting 2 stakes wins in the prep races. So it's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Gervin was phenomenal last year as a sire, especially a low-cost sire. He was winning races all over the place, and so it's fun to see some of his 3-year-olds continue to improve as well. It was probably one of those horses where if I told you Gervin was going to be a top 5 freshman sire, you looked at me like I'm crazy. But that's exactly what he was.
I would have looked at you like you told me you bet the Baker Mayfield in his rookie year to lead the Cleveland Browns to win the Super Bowl. That's still the craziest look I think I've ever given you.
I bet Baker Mayfield to win the Super Bowl in his best professional season.
You know, you're not wrong.
So I did bet him at the peak of his talent.
That's where we stand for everything for the Derby and the Oaks over at racingnews.com. You can check out Aaron's top 20 post with his top 20 if the Derby was going to be run right now, who he thinks would be in the field and where he places them. You can also watch the video at youtube.com/racingdudes where he explains his top 5 in detail and why he put Practical Move in the position that he did. You can also catch all the replays from the Derby and Oaks preps over at racingdudes.com. And of course, Dudes Who Bet Daily every Wednesday through Sunday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. How did things end Sunday? I wasn't paying attention.
Well, Papa Dude and I gave out rocking chair winners, just absolute snoozers. Drake won by 20 as a pick'em. I gave an over 230 in the Spurs Rockets game. They had over 230 with 6 minutes left in the game. They ended up getting like 250 something. And Aaron just couldn't keep the train rolling. He had the over in the Avs game. They ended up 3-2. So I wasn't quite able to get to 6, but ended up 3-2 there, plus for the week. So able to win a little bit of money after a slow start.
That's good. Yeah, the 2 times I showed up, I'm the reason that the Avs didn't cash. Like I think that's the first time that an Avs bet did not cash on the show. It's because I jumped the line and took it from Aaron. Sorry, Aaron, I'll never do that again. You can always have the Avs here for that one. But yeah, please join us for that. Even if you're not into sports betting or you don't have an opinion, we always have a lot of fun in the chat. Over half the show, it's us. It's screwing around in the morning. It's not sports related. We're not serious about it. So it's usually
what ad you got going there, Magic?
Dude, I don't know. This is the problem when you turn off ad trackers. They just throw random shit up there. So here, I'll refresh it and see what it changes to. I'm gonna laugh if it's the same thing again. So now it's about. That's Agassi? Wait, is that shoot? That's a supermodel. What did Andre Agassi marry?
Brooke Shields.
Oh, okay. You're right. It's Brooke Shields. So now I can see an article about. I got ad tracker turned off. It's just random shit. But you're right. No, that was pretty.
A voluptuous 42-year-old woman in a divorce ad. That's not. Not
well, now it's this, and I still don't. I've seen this one a lot. I do not. It just says iconic, but it doesn't tell me who she is.
Yeah. Only 99.
I don't know, but she's at the Chumash Casino Resort on March 18th, so you can get tickets.
Hey, there you go. I mean, Chumash in my neck of the woods. Come on up.
I don't know who she is. Why am I spending $99 to go see her? I don't even know what she does. I'm guessing she's a singer.
Mary. Starting at $99. If you want the good seats, you're paying a little more than that.
That's true. Anyways, we went way off the rails here at the end. Thanks for joining Mike and I. Talk about the latest Kentucky Derby, Kentucky Oaks updates. Of course, go to racingnews.com for all the free picks and premium products for every race, every track across the country. Wait, you are leaving tomorrow. So I'm actually going to I got to find somebody to fill in for you on Thursday. I'm guessing you probably don't want to be on the Magic Mike Show Thursday talking Tampa Bay Derby late pick 5.
No, sir. You're going to need to get a fill-in for Thursday and for Monday for me. I'll be at NHC on Thursday and then traveling back home on Monday, so I won't be able to make the next couple shows. Dudes Who Bet Daily will still be going on. I think Aaron is going to take over the reins to kind of to host that show. I will try and jump on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday if I can. Would probably be from the NHC room. If I'm able to make it, we'll have to see what post times are. Gulfstream Park, notably, is now a 12:40 post moving forward versus the 12:10. So that is going to be a later post time now. So that's going to kind of push everything back a little bit as we have more light in Florida. They push the post times back. So I think I might be able to make the 9 o'clock show a couple of those days. So stay tuned there. About still sending in best bets there for that show.
Awesome. So yeah, Mike is going to NHC this week. If you're going to be in Las Vegas at NHC, let him know. It's always a big, fun social event. Sad I won't be there, but really, especially timing wise, between with my Mrs. Magic's work and then sick little kiddo, it's not going to happen. But I will come back to it someday. It is a lot of fun down there at NHC. Even if you're not participating, it's like actively involved. It's a lot less stressful. I'll tell you that much. I just sit back and eat and drink all day and watch you. I'm like, yeah, go Mike.
That's the definition of my Friday last year, was just sit back and drink and see if it works out. And it went well. It was a good Friday last year. We'll see if we can repeat that one.
Make sure you follow us on Twitter. I'm at Curtis Kalleward. He's at Somobomb 18, number 1, number 8. Corporate Overlords at Racing_Dudes. Make sure you check back later this week for more previews. Tampa Bay Derby week coming up, so we will have some picks and stuff for that. And I guess maybe it'll be Aaron. It's not like Aaron has anything to do on a Thursday. He's got 4 other shows to run, so maybe not Aaron. Maybe I'll give him a break from that. We'll find someone else. But tune in to find out who that is on Thursday. Until then, I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
Good luck this week, especially to you at NHC, sir.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.